Hi, welcome to the video. So I want to talk about the end of the age versus end of all things. They're not quite, one entails a little bit more than the other. So we know if we go to Matthew 24 or Mark 13 or Luke 21, the Olivet Discourse, they talk about the destruction of the temple and the end of the age. That temple represents the end of an age, yes. But however, is that the end of all things? No, I would beg to disagree with that. So, actually, let's go to this chart here. So, if you go to the right, I have 1 Peter 4:7, but the end of all things is at hand. Now, he wrote this in AD 66. So, to put things into perspective, let me give you an analogy. Let's say we're in the future and people can live on Mars, okay? And currently I'm living in a house on Earth. And that house gets burned down. And I plan on 6 months later moving to Mars. That house being burned down represents the end of an age for me. I'm no longer living at home. I'm going to be a renter for a few months until I head out to Mars. So not until I head out to Mars, the end of all things take place on Earth. I'm not planning on coming back. That makes sense? So there's a difference between the end of an age and the end of all things. So I don't disagree. Yes, the temple was destroyed in AD 70. It's the end of an age, but it's not the end of all things. So what would Peter referring to instead of all things? So something we need to keep in mind, he was not an apostle to the Gentiles. He's an apostle only to the Jews. So when he wrote his letters, both his epistles, 1st and 2nd Peter, he was writing to just the Jewish people. And if you disagree with that, then we're going to have to part ways, okay? We're going to have to disagree. He was an apostle to the Jews, not the Gentiles. Paul, on the other hand, yes, he was an apostle to the Gentiles, but if we read Romans 9:3, I believe, he's going to be accursed for his brethren. He could not let go. And so he would actually at times be writing to church, but he's really addressing the Jewish people in that church and leaving up to them to discern what to share with the Gentiles. So that's audience relevant 200, if you will. So that's what Peter is referring to when he's writing to the Jewish people. It's the end of all things for them is at hand. All right, not so much the destruction of the temple itself. Yes, that is part of it. That's the end of an age. Yes, nobody disagrees with that. All right, except for those who don't recognize the Greek word aeon that's used in Matthew 24, verse 3. Unfortunately, King James had translated world, and that's thrown a lot of people off. But here, the end of all things is at hand. So that was basically, if you remember Matthew 23:38, the house will be left desolate. Now, Jesus did not say a fraction of the house be left desolate. He said the house be left desolate. All right? That includes the entire house. A lot of people interpret that as the apostate Jews, apostate Israel. No, it's the entire house. All right? So when we talk about the rapture, me and Lord in the air, yeah, that took place here, September 22nd, AD 73. The next day, they were left desolate. That was fulfilled, Matthew 23:38. That's when it's fulfilled. So we have documentation based on Josephus' writings that a group of Jews had left the temple, and it was on April 11th, AD 70. So it was on the day of or the day before Passover, sorry. So, so then that evening, it starts the next day in the Hebraic calendar, And at the first day, they're in the wilderness, and that's the 40th anniversary of the Lord's Supper, to pretty much to the hour. So there's a difference between the end of all things and the end of an age. All right. So I hope that makes sense. Because a lot of people, they look at Matthew 24 and they think that that's all there is to it. And so they take the year 80-30 and add the 40 years up. Jesus' prophecy fulfilled with accuracy down to the year, which makes him a true prophet. Agree. But they're not talking about the end of all things. They're talking about the end of the destruction of the temple and the end of the age that temple represents. All right. So again, there's more to the story. You still had the lawless one running around. You still had Israel's enemies running around. And they were in the wilderness. They still had to fulfill the 1260 days, Revelation 12:6. And they had their last Yom Teruah. And that could not be their last Yom Teruah here. They have not fulfilled the 1260 days yet, plus the time and half a time did not fit the annual 12:7. You can't take the year 86-9, the last Yom Teruah, because Josephus documented that they fled right here. So neither one of them works. So anyway, something to think about. There's a difference between the end of an age, destruction of the temple, and the end of all things, where it was referring to as all things from them, and they're going to be gone. So when we talk about last days, it's literally their last days on earth where they're heading out. So, having said that, if you believe what I said to be true, which it is, then you would recognize that these church fathers are going around saying, like Irenaeus, claiming that, he knew Polycarp, and Polycarp knew John, and this was, during the, up until, what's the name of the emperor? 2 emperors after the mission. He started in AD 98. So, he claimed in book 1 and 2 of, against heresy that John was seen up until then. So that right there suggests that Irenaeus was trying to make a name for himself when he did that. So I'm just throwing that in there. We have to exercise caution when we read things about church fathers. Anyway, this video is not about that. But anyway, I just want to make it clear that there's a difference between the end of an age, destruction of the temple, and that the age that the temple represented, and the end of all things. 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 7. All right. So that's all I want to say. Thank you very much, and you have an awesome day.